This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast.
It all started on June 22nd, 2007 in Columbus. Chicago, for the first time in franchise history, owned the first overall pick. A kid from Buffalo, New York, described as skilled with an excellent shot but undersized, was the name bellowed on the speakers at the Nationwide Arena. Patrick Kane. And who knew how many more times we'd hear that name and how much of an impact that kid from Buffalo would have over the course of the next 16 years. A new era in Chicago, the Kane and Taves era. One where hockey was relevant once again. A franchise that was once viewed as one of the worst in sports history and not televising games became must-see TV. The accolades quickly piled up, and from the start of a dynasty, was in full swing. A Calder Trophy in 2007 to 2008, and the Stanley Cup clinching goal in 2010 to end a 49-year drought to bring Lord Stanley back to Chicago. It sort of feels like we grew up together over the years. We watched Kane go from a young, drunken party animal in his younger 20s to slowing down in life, becoming a father, as we went from our youth to starting families of our own. From the start of my sports fandom at 9 to 10 years old, it has always been Kane and Taves. They were always intertwined when you think Chicago Blackhawks. It has been that way forever. I truly cannot imagine what this team is going to be like without them, and no longer those two names going hand in hand. It's all mystery going forward. And here we are. 9 All-Star appearances, Calder Trophy winner, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, Art Ross Trophy winner, Hart Trophy winner, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, and 16 years later of unforgettable memories. Showtime is off where the lights and cameras are always rolling. Broadway. So here's to the greatest Chicago Blackhawk to ever put on the sweater, and to the greatest American hockey player to ever play the game. Thank you, Kaner.
Thank you to Patrick Kane. Thank you for putting on a show. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show for the evening, the Stick Blade Podcast. We're your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks, news around the NHL. Boys, tonight, the NHL trade deadline is officially conceded. It's over. All the moves that are going to be moved have been moved. All the players that are going to be traded and going elsewhere to try to win a championship somewhere else, they're gone. We're in the fallout days. Guys, we're going to break down what happened with the Blackhawks and the Red Wings this podcast over what happened at the trade deadline with both clubs. A lot of big moves for both organizations moving forward. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer episode than we normally give. So if you can bear with us, I promise it'll be a lot of in-depth discussion.
Strap in.
Talking about what's going on with both clubs in the future. Both general managers came out and had, discussions about where they view the clubs at after these moves with the trade deadline. We're going to talk about all that stuff this week. Nick, you started with Patrick Kane. Let's just jump into it. The guy who's been on the storyboards for the past, couple weeks and even months at this point across the NHL. Patrick Kane moves to the New York Rangers.
Yeah, tough. I mean, obviously, Hawks fans around the world, it's really started a new era. It's it feels weird. I don't know. That's kind of the only way I could describe it. It's sad. It's weird. You've seen it coming, but it's still, when that moment hits and you see the Hawks take the ice and there's no 88 on the ice, he's no longer the last person off the ice. It's sort of an unsettling feeling because we might not ever see another player like that, and it's tough to lose someone you grew up watching with, like I said in the monologue.
I just gotta, jump in real quick, Nick, and thanks for making me feel really old in your speech when you said, my sports fandom started at 9 or 10, and that's when we got Patrick Kane, and I'm like,
that's 2007. Hold on.
I graduated. I was in college when you were doing that, and thanks for that. Appreciate you.
That's hilarious. That was the first time that it felt real to me. I think I've been it hadn't kicked in, even though I've watched both of his games as a Ranger. We've been prepping for this realistically, we've been prepping for this for a year. This is the scenario that, even though we might not have dared to really believe it, it was always there in the back of our heads. So it was a little numb. Almost. I think I've been numb for a couple of days since it happened, just sort of like, yes, this was inevitable. This was happening. But yeah, everything that you just said, I mean, it culminates in, I think, the way Patrick Kane made you feel. Mark Lazarus talked about it a lot on The Athletic in one of his articles in the past week. Like, Patrick Kane made you feel so captivated watching hockey. He was so many people. I mean, you listen every single year when guys get drafted. Patrick Kane was my favorite player. Patrick Kane. Like, he inspired a generation of hockey. He's the reason that these Trevor Zegerases and kids today feel comfortable coming out and like going for it, that they can go with the flash and the style. Like, he opened that door to a fun, exciting, creative way of hockey that we hadn't seen, especially in Chicago, in a long time. I am coming to terms with it. I don't know if we want to actually get into the trade, get into everything there.
Yeah, I mean, I want to build off that point too, Tim. It's just like Lazarus described it best. Like, talking about how Kane kind of transcended the game in the NHL. Like you said, how players that was their role model. And it's like, he's one of those rare people that he could either enter the zone as quick as possible, and you don't know what is going to happen. He comes in the zone with speed, or he could slow it down and play with the best of them and just kind of make the game look slow. And yeah, it changed the way you felt about it, because every time you enter the zone, you're on the edge of your seat, whether you're on the couch or at the United Center. It's just, I mean, it truly was remarkable to see something like that come to Chicago and really just change the game. Essentially, it changed the game.
I mean, I'll never forget any of the cup runs, even the ones that we didn't win, just the ones where we, went into the finals or the Western Conference finals and things like that. I'll never forget, like, the amount, whether it was 2010 when I was watching it with my folks right after coming home from college, or like, being in different bars or like restaurants and stuff, just like watching. People are past it, like, even the most exciting parts of the game, people are watching it, but it's sort of a like, oh, this is really good. Whenever Patrick Kane had the puck on his stick and he entered that zone, the entire place just, like,
silent.
He had that power to command the room.
I honestly, like, I miss the Blackhawk Red Wings days.
That 2013 run.
Especially when you're young guns, like, you guys had to go through us. We were the West.
Yeah, 100%.
They tried to go through us a few times, and it didn't go well. And, one of my favorite memories, I joked about this in the podcast, like, I think last year, the year before, was Patrick Kane. We were talking about Patrick Kane, and I said, he always had his freaking mouth guard hanging out of his mouth all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And my favorite memory was the mule just taking it, and Patrick's like, hey.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
funny.
But like, our vets were gonna mess with your young guys, and you finally broke past us, and you won your cup.
It's that Hossa trade. I'll always say that. But
I mean, it truly was remarkable. I mean, I guess to kind of transcend it until it. Oh, go ahead, David.
So here's hoping that the Arizona State Coyotes move to Atlanta, and the Red Wings can go back to the East or the West.
Yeah, we'll see who knows when our windows align. But to kind of go into the details of the trade, the Hawks got a 2023 second rounder this year that could be a first round pick either in 24 or 25 if the Rangers make it to the conference final. And they got a 4th round pick along with that, and then Billy Sariarvi from the Coyotes, and I don't even know the last. And we sent Cooper Zach with Kane. Again, I know last week we kind of talked about it. I think we were all in agreement. Temper your expectations on a Kane trade. And
I'm kind of thrilled with what we got back, to be entirely honest. Like, Nick, I don't know about you. The fact that the condition for the pick is tied to them making the conference finals and not the Stanley Cup finals feels great. Like, I think there's a way more realistic expectation that they could make the conference finals.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got to feel good about it. I know it's hard to feel good when you're like, that guy. Yeah. All my memories, and we got a second round pick on paper right now. It's a second round pick and a 4th. But when you're handcuffed against it, and you have nothing else but to go do right by Patrick Kane. We'll get into that doing right thing.
Yeah, I'm curious to have your thoughts on it because I've
Yeah.
got mine, but yeah, well, yeah.
But like, you did him right. It's the only place he wanted to go. It's the only place he would go. And Kyle Davidson squeezed every little bit of juice that he could get out of the Rangers. And
Thrilled that we got, yeah.
I mean, it's very possible. I think it's the Rangers and the Bruins the Eastern Conference might run through. So all in all, I'm whelmed, but I'm also happy with the return because there is a first tied to it.
I mean, that's the kicker. Like the fact that we got the second, the condition, like you couldn't really ask for more. And the fact that I said this last week, nobody is going to love Patrick Kane the way Chicago loved Patrick Kane. That includes other teams, like not just their fans, but like other teams where it's like, hey, this would be a really good piece of our puzzle. Like he was our puzzle. Like that was it. Like it was Patrick Kane. So when we're seeing, I'm trading for Patrick Kane, what they're looking at is so different than the perception of what we're looking at. So I get it. Really excited for the Rangers to have 5 days off since their last game to actually get some practices in and figure out, because again, Kane got there. They played on Wednesday. Kane got in on a Wednesday. Then Kane played Thursday. They were off Friday. They played again Saturday. I don't think, from what I was hearing, I don't think Patrick Kane had a practice with the team.
No, I think he just had a morning skate.
Straight up 2 games. Like that's ridiculous. So I'm excited for him to actually practice with the team. And, it was surreal, Nick, just watching the game and like listening to like, oh yeah, Patrick Kane was the second to last person off the ice. It was him and Panarin. We asked him about, how did you decide? And he goes, it's Panarin's team.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that is a weird, like it wasn't seeing him in the uniform, wasn't all that. It was here, well, this is Panarin's team. So like he has that honor. Like,
yeah.
oh,
I'm
Jesus.
his guest. I'm his guest here. Kind of tying that in too. I mean, before it was Kane's second game. It was that Saturday morning game. It was ABC on hockey.
Yeah.
And Emily Kaplan had a report pre-show. And essentially it's not quote for quote, but it's Kane. She said it wasn't like Kane was dying to get out of Chicago. When it became apparent that the Blackhawks didn't want to re-sign him this summer, he figured he would look for a chance to win this year rather than putting it off for a few months. That's where I am. I don't want to say I'm aggravated. I don't want to say I'm mad because eventually you do have to move on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's not a force out, but it's like, we don't want you here anymore. And sorry, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
No, I've been processing this all day as I've been watching a lot of things. It feels to me very much like there are a lot of emotional responses going on right now. And I'm seeing from a lot of other beat writers and stuff like that, like, hey, like it's sort of like, let's take some of the emotion out of it for like, this is what are you going to do if we don't tender a contract? I get Davidson's been very clear about the direction of this team. And I feel like in years past, all we've ever heard was like, they'll never be able to do a real rebuild with Kane and Tays. You got to tear it down to the studs. Like, how are we going to move forward if we stay tied to the, all that jazz? And then when it finally happens, I think that there's a lot of emotional responses, right? Myself included, where it's like, damn, like I still hope that we re-sign him in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But I also get, hey, mathematically and like where we're at, we're not going anywhere. We're deliberately trying to tank. Like you've got to make those moves. And I appreciate him sticking to his guns. And I feel bad for Kane on one end, but I also feel bad for the organization on the other, that they're in this position because we could have fixed this 3 years ago.
Yeah. No, yeah. All in all, like, again, to kind of wrap up the Kane talk, because we could obviously talk about him for 3
but
hours.
We've got other things to do. Yep, yeah, exactly.
It's just, it's hard to remove the attachment or the emotional.
I don't think Chicago can.
Yeah, you can't. But maybe you kind of, the thought's always there. It's like, would 3 or 4 more years of Patrick Kane being good and help drive tickets, especially when you're in the cap floor. Was a second and a fourth round pick worth it if, you could have kept the legacy going, but who knows? It leaves it's going to be an unanswered question, I guess, for at least another 7 years until we see what happens with it.
I want to do one final thing on that thought about doing right by Patrick Kane. I have two things that I've seen thrown around. I've seen some people talk about the Chelios trade and like, this shouldn't surprise you. Like, look what they did with it's like, that was also no communication, like kicking a guy to the curb, trading him when they thought he was no longer of use to them. And he went on to have a killer career. Like, Davidson and Kane have been in communicate. Like, that's one thing that we have seen and has been reported. Like, they were in communication all year, treating each other very, respectfully and classy in an impossible situation. And the other part is, all I can think of is the Jonathan Quick trade with the Keens, a cornerstone of the best years, some of the best years of your franchise, 2 cups with this guy, your, stud goaltender. And that's a guy that you catch off guard, you kick to the curb. He goes to Columbus of all things. Like, he didn't have a say in that. We did right by Patrick Kane in the sense that Patrick Kane also did right by us by waiving the no trade. Like, it was a mutual agreement, and we sent him to a place that he wanted to go. The Jonathan Quick trade, I think, is going to be remembered much uglier than the Kane one.
Yeah. So, all in all, to wrap it up.
Yep.
I forgot the Kings
Tanner?
one too.
Thank you. Go win a cup, not only for you, but for a first round pick. So there you go.
Showtime on Broadway. Love it.
Tim, you're actually just talking about, like doing right by Patrick Kane. Kyle Davidson, he actually had a little bit of like media availability this week talking about, the state of the Blackhawks, the rebuild, where he views them at. And something that he did touch on during that talk was, you're dealing at the end of the day, are you dealing with assets in terms of like, people have X amount of value for this organization and dollar signs, whatever. Yes, those players have that sort of value. But they are also people who have families,
Human
who
beings.
have kids, who they have real lives outside of the game. And that was something that Kyle Davidson touched on, particularly in the Max Domi trade, I believe it was. He was talking about that. Obviously, like I said, Kyle Davidson, he talked to the media, I think for around 40-ish minutes or something like that on the interview that I was listening to. Tim or Nick, did either of you guys get a chance to actually listen to that discussion that he had?
No, I did not get a chance to listen. I obviously he's been kind of pleading that. I've seen some quotes from like Scott Powers and Mark Lazarus tweeting out, but watching the video was no. Tim, how about you?
I've seen a couple of clips, and it's pretty much what Jordan's reiterated. I was watching a different, like a Hawks trade deadline thing breaking down at that time. I got to go back and watch some of it, but I have watched the clip from the Blackhawks released like a coming to terms series where you get some behind the scenes insight into the trade deadline. The clip specifically that sticks out in my head is the call between Davidson and Patrick Kane about hey, I think it's all in place. You're going to be a Ranger, thanks for everything. And Kane being like, hey, that you've handled this really classy. Like, I've appreciated all this. And like, to your point, Jordan, we've heard the same thing when he talked about Domi. We heard Jack Johnson talk, we talked about it last week about, hey, this is a guy that's really trying to both run a business and put the team in a position to succeed while treating these guys like human beings. That is a hard line to walk, where these are also assets and like little pieces on your puzzle board. I give him, that's an impossible line to walk. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, we were talking about Domi.
I was just about to go into Domi. Actually, I love that. Go for it, Nick.
So, the Hawks sent Max Domi to the Dallas Stars on his birthday, right across from the locker room. Well, they're in town, right across the locker room.
We almost had it. We almost had the David, your dream of someone just skating to the other locker room.
I told you that happened almost with the Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there was a trade.
It was the player on my fantasy card team. Frick, I dropped him.
Oh, was it Kapanen?
Yeah.
Good
Pittsburgh to Nashville, I think, or St. Louis.
Yeah,
but yeah, the Domi trade. It sounds like a lot of teams have been inquiring, but it wasn't at they had set a hard limit of what they would trade Domi for, it sounds like,
Yeah.
because they assigned his value. They're like, no, this guy wants to be here. This guy likes being here. Like, we'll do it. We'll resign him.
It was a
And then we got the-
2025 second, correct,
Yep.
from Dallas? Yeah. So, I mean, all in all, I think we said it earlier this year when we first signed him, we'd be happy with a 3rd round pick. So
And-
everybody upset about the Domi trade. I get he's Chicago tough. I get he's
love
one of
him.
those people that you love. I think there's a chance he comes back just based off Luke Richardson and all the beat writers' comments.
You
But
really liked Chicago
Yeah.
too.
a 2025 second you take.
And that's building on that. Like, I saw some people getting upset between that, and I think the McCabe Lafferty trade too, about like the timing of the 1st and 2nd round picks. Like, oh wait, we should be loading up in this draft. And again, I've heard Davidson talk about his theories with that. I'm on board with it. He's like, you don't want to stack up in one draft. You want to have several drafts in a row of being able to, we can either draft and get prospects from this, or we can use that value in future drafts to like move up or to, flip them for having it spread out strategically means in 2 years, 3 years, we're continuing to build a future as we're laying a foundation for now. It's a really exciting, like, after living year to year for like the past 5 or 6 years, it's really refreshing to hear there's actually a long-term plan.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's kind of relieving that the fact that Davidson is actually thinking out this process, and obviously you want immediate, like you grew again. It's the separating the attachment from the actual player.
It's hard.
That we Hawks fans have. I mean, you think 2025 second, like, oh my God, it's 20.
That's forever.
2025.
Like,
That's
what is
forever from now.
that?
I know you're gonna remember how we got this pick, but no, yeah, it's a great return. And then, like Davidson said, which I guess we could turn it into our next segment. I mean, they're accumulating 14 draft picks in the first 3 rounds over
Yeah.
the next 3 seasons.
That's
It's incredible because you like you were saying, Tim, Davidson could build off the draft, just get depth in the prospect pool, or you're infatuated with a guy, you need to trade up. We've seen Stevie Y do it quite a bit.
absolutely.
He'll combine those picks and trade up for the guy he wants. So I think that's got to be one of the most amount of picks I think a team has ever accumulated over a short span. And then to build on 3 first rounders last year and 2 second rounders last year and 2 thirds. I mean,
Yeah.
Tim, you got it in front of you.
I've got it literally in front of me. So in 2022, we had 3 first round picks. Obviously, that was Korchinski, Nazer, and Rinzel. And then we've got 6 first round picks over the next 3 years. 2 in 23, 2 in 24, 2 in 25. We're the only team with 6 first round selections over the next 3 NHL drafts. Second round, again, to your point, Nick, we had Paul Ludwinski and Ryan Green in 2022. I forgot Ryan Green was a second rounder.
Yeah.
I love that. We've got 4 second round picks in 2023, and then 2 in 24 and 2 in 25. So the 4 in 23 is dumb, right? Like, that's, well, the condition, there's a conditional pick in there.
The Rangers.
Yeah, that's the Rangers one, but like, that's wild, right?
Yeah, I mean,
4 second round picks, like,
you control almost an over.
you could
whatever.
do anything with that. Yeah,
You control an eighth of the second round.
basically.
It's nuts. Like, it's gonna feel like the Hawks are on the draft board every time. Yeah, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
incredible. I want to get your guys' thoughts too,
Yeah,
Jordan. 'cause
please.
I know we've been kind of running the show just with our feelings and everything.
We've got some big Detroit
yeah.
things. Listen,
Yeah,
they've
oh, yeah.
gotten to talk about a
Yeah.
lot this
Got
year.
rid of Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, but when you see a GM like Davidson acquiring all this draft capital, and you can only assume so much more in the offseason based off the salary cap. We're gonna I think gonna get to the floor at some point, so take on some bad contracts.
Mhm.
What do you guys think? Do you see a mini Stevie Y in him?
I mean, the thing that I really think is interesting, I think a lot of people are really overlooking it, is like, as much as people are like, the second round draft picks aren't as sexy as, like, the top 10 picks in the first round, where you expect guys who are going to make your roster in 2 years. those second round draft picks, I think they have right around like a 25% chance of making the NHL. And you guys said you have, what is it, 8 of them within the next 6 years?
I mean, yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we've got 8 in the next 3 years. That's
8
wild.
of them within the next 3 years. So if even just 25% of that hits, you're looking at least probably 2 top to middle 6 wingers or forwards, and probably a top 4 defenseman somewhere. And then that's not even counting your first round draft picks. And that's if only, again, your 25% hits. This is a great spot for your rebuild to be in. You've got time still. And
Mhm.
No, we got all time.
I mean, that's
all
all.
the
Yeah,
time in the
all
world.
we have at this point is time because
Like-
we certainly don't have players.
There's not enough time.
it's I'm not bagging on the Blackhawks system, like, let's be clear, but the Blackhawks system does not have, the franchise center right now who you're looking at and saying in
No.
3 years he's going to come off the entry level contract and he's going to cost us $10 million. The Blackhawks aren't in that bind like the Edmonton Oilers were, for example, with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. They've got time for the first round draft picks that they got last year, Frank Nazar, Kevin Korchinski, guys like that, to continue developing
Yep.
either in college and junior, to come up and start phasing through. And while that's happening, guess what? That's when you're getting all your draft selections for the next 3 years. So you're going to have an older core that's only about a year or two older than this whole group you're about to probably get through the draft, who will all be on what should be pretty reasonable entry level contracts, as long as none of them really explode at the NHL level. And then you've still got time for those guys to ease in on their RFA level. So you've basically got nobody who's going to be requiring a high cap hit. You've got a ton of picks that you're going to probably turn into depth pieces, and you can weaponize cap space like Steve Yzerman's done the past couple of off seasons. You can literally hit every single base right now with your rebuild. You can accumulate assets. You can use assets to turn them into players. And on top of that, like, you're not in a rush, so you don't need to rush development right now.
Yep.
It's almost the perfect spot for a rebuild.
Yeah, I like that thought too, Jordan, where you just said, like, you don't have to rush development. I think now that they're like, you don't have to appease to someone like Patrick Kane and kind of try to make him happy, or a Jonathan Toews who's probably going to be walking away from the game or on another team this coming off season. You could bring them up at your own will. Like, if they show they're ready, then they're ready. Like, there's no reason to rush it. You got all the time in the world. And then these draft picks that we have coming up, these 14 that we have in the next in the first 3 rounds of over the next 3 years, that's also building onto a Scott Wheeler ranked top 5 prospect system
And
in the NHL.
And keep in mind, in 1 year, we jumped from like 25th to 5th.
Yeah.
So like, let's see what happens.
We don't have anything cool like trust the eyes are plan, but believe in Davidson. I don't know.
KD.
Trust the process, but going to like the Philadelphia 76ers. No, yeah, I'm all aboard. It was a tough week. Probably the hardest it's been as a Chicago, one of the hardest, I should say.
Yeah, I was gonna say, listen, there's been some hard times.
Yeah, no, one of the hardest it's been in a long time. But all good things must come to an end. Not everything could stay golden. And now a new era started.
As we sort of wrap up the Hawks, Jordan and David, I just wanted to ask you really quick, as we were obviously eulogizing and talking about Patrick Kane, from, I wouldn't even say an impartial third party. I mean, you guys, especially in those first couple years, you were staring at him with our rivalry. I gotta ask, what did Patrick Kane mean to you guys? Like, just a little quick thing, because you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, I get it.
Or like, besides the Franza one, or like a memory you have.
Yeah, I just want to hear something like that.
Just share your side of the story for Kaner.
That cup winning goal where was it Philly?
Yeah,
Philly.
the one where only he knew it was in.
Where I was like, did that go in? Is it over? Did they just win? Okay, dang. But that was like probably my biggest memory of him was like, wow, they won it. They finally won it.
Yep.
I don't know. I think for me, it wasn't necessarily a moment. It was almost more of kind of like a feeling you had. Like, Patrick Kane was such a unique player coming out of the draft, and everyone said, he was too small. He was going to get just completely muscled off the puck, wasn't going to be able to hang at the NHL level. And then you kind of just saw how speed and stick handling just took a lot of people by surprise. Nobody was really prepared for it. And like that includes the Red Wings. Like, let's be clear, like
Yeah.
when they started making the playoffs, Patrick Kane created real problems for the Red Wings. I can't remember if it was a playoff game or not, but it was one of his shootout attempts. It didn't result in a goal, but I remember he was skating in on Howard. He slows down really slow. And I've watched the clip probably 7 or 8 times. I'm pretty sure he moved his stick left to right 14 or 15 times and then slams up and hits the crossbar. But I remember watching that clip and I think to myself, shit, this kid's the real deal. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so nice. It's kind of, I mean, I know we were the biggest rivals for a long time. Obviously, the rivalry has kind of dwindled away as Detroit went towards the east and we stayed in the west. But it's kind of nice and relieving to, I don't know, hear about the other side and like realize,
Yeah.
oh God, this guy scares the shit out of me.
You guys sort of felt the same way that we did when he had the puck, just in a different like channeling of that energy.
I mean, to wrap up our side, I guess, Tim, what's your like most iconic Kane? Like, what was the goal or the moment that kind of just like when you think Patrick Kane, that's what the first thing that comes into mind?
You know what's funny? It's not like there's a bunch of like different goal scores and moments and stuff that I think of, but it's to me, it's seeing him on the ice, the way he handles the puck. Like I realized it watching one of the Rangers games that he was playing. I couldn't see who he was. Because they're all blue. I didn't see the back of his jersey, but I saw his stick and I saw him with the puck and it's just like going, and I was like, oh, that's Kane. I know that that's Kane. And sure enough, he fired it. He turned around 88. I was like, he has such a distinct presence. Again, I always root for undersized players, being undersized myself. And like the fact that Patrick Kane's response to a big, strong league was, what if I just don't get hit? And what if I just deke around you with this? Oh, watch out. His stick handling is so iconic to me. There is nobody else, even like a Connor McDavid, there was nobody else that stick handles and is such a specific style of it like Patrick Kane.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess to round out this
Yeah,
last
please,
discussion on Kaner. Oh man, there's so many. It's I think the one that kind of he started like it was superstardom. It was the 09-010 series against the Canucks, and the Canucks were talking like that's when the Canucks were talking all this shit about Chelsea Dagger and Kane's just a power play specialist.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And Kaner comes out. I think it was a game 5, game 6. And he scores a hat trick. It was on Luongo was talking all this shit. And the fifth goal was, or the third goal was a thing of beauty. It was a backhand from like the high slot. And he just sniped him top shelf. I mean, it was like, this kid's it. This kid's it. And yeah, I mean, to come away with that, it's like you shut up the Vancouver Canucks, who were probably our biggest rival at the time because of all the regular season meetings we had with them, and
it was a bitter rivalry that man,
it was a bloodbath. So like kind of it was like the sign like, hey, I'm not no power play specialist and you shut your goddamn mouth.
I'm an everything specialist.
I dislike y'all, but Chelsea Dagger, that song slaps.
Oh, absolutely. I just remember listening.
I love the Fratellis. I love the
Fratellis. Fratellis song going on right now. Like, what does this have to do?
Yeah. So I mean, that one sticks in my brain. That was I mean, I know it's a basic one, but you could go with the cup.
It's so good.
Or the tying goal against the Predators when Hossa was in the box on a major penalty.
Oh yeah, that was phenomenal.
To send it to OT. There's just so many. I don't want to keep going on.
That's why I was like, man, how do I? Obviously, the one with Philly where it goes in, and he's the only one that knows him and Foley. Like, yeah, of course, that's the first thing that jumps into my brain.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, that's it. It's a new era in Chicago. This show's not all about us today. As much pain as we were in. Because holy hell, the Red Wings made some moves.
I was gonna say, yeah, goodness, you guys are going through. It might not be, Patrick Kane, but like you guys have your own series of goodbyes to say.
And real quick, shout out Future Considerations. You helped us build a
Future Considerations was the OG throughout this whole trade.
3 trades, but Austin Wagner and Anders Bjork. All right, we said our goodbye. The Red Wings have some goodbyes to say. Boys, how you guys feeling?
Not great, but not awful. We had so many like happy moments this season to start. We're like, man, like we can make the playoffs. We're coming out of the rebuild. Like Jordan and I were saying, like, yeah, the rebuild, it looks like it's going to be over soon. And we got put in our place pretty hard. And Bertuzzi, that was like our biggest prediction of a trade since like last year with all the COVID stuff, where like that left not only a bad taste in our mouth, but you could tell it left a bad taste in Yzerman's mouth when he had to talk about it back when it happened. Because like every single player was getting the jab, not because they wanted to, because I'm sure there was others who were like, I don't really want to get this, but they were doing it for their team. And Bertuzzi was the only player in the entire NHL that didn't. And that just left a bad taste. Like your team's getting stomped in these Canada road trips and you're sitting at home. And I know at the time we were angry and we're like, yeah, get rid of him. This is terrible. But like, we always loved Bert. I still love Bert. I think he's a great gritty player. But I wasn't that heartbroken to see him go. Like it sucks. I like Bert. You could tell it hurt Larkin a lot because like Bert's his best buddy on the team. But I don't agree with people that put themselves before the team, and that's how it felt to me since then. And you know, I hope he does well in Boston for this season, the rest of the season. Maybe he stays there, maybe he doesn't. It hurt more to see Hronek leave, and really Oscar Sundqvist. Like I know we've barely had him, but his presence, like he was a very gritty guy as well. But like, I don't know, there was just something about Sonny that I really enjoyed. And seeing him go, at least he went to the Wild, where one of my friends is a Wild fan. But it's been hard because like we thought, yeah, the rebuild's almost over. And now I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, oh man, this rebuild's going to go on forever. And I'm sure Yzerman has plans, like trust the Yzer plan. We have so many picks, 5 first rounders in the next, what did you say, Jordan?
We have 5 first rounders in the next 2 years.
Spicy.
So I'm like, we might not even use those picks. We might trade those picks for stuff. Like, who knows? Maybe we make an offer sheet for Elias Pettersson and give up some of those first round picks for him. But I thought there was a light, and it's dimmed a bit for me. Like, I'm not like, oh, we're going to be a terrible team forever. Like, it just sucks because I wanted to see us competing. And right now, looking at the Bostons, the Carolinas, the Torontos, the Tampas, they will stomp us in the playoffs. And I don't want to be stomped in the playoffs. We've had that already, where we were first round exit
for 4 years out of 5
before Toronto was doing it for fun. I don't want to be that. So that's how I feel. It sucks, but I still trust the Yzer plan. Like he knows what he's doing.
I mean, I think the thing for me is obviously we all knew Tyler Bertuzzi was probably going elsewhere, especially when Detroit looked like it was obviously weren't in the playoff race anymore. And Steve Yzerman actually kind of mentioned that in his press conference, which we'll get to that a little bit later. But he actually even said, you know, there was no way I was going to be a buyer at this deadline, just based on the way the team had been doing this season. Bertuzzi does suck, but you know what? Props to Steve Yzerman. That might turn into like a real asset if Boston has a down year next year. Like,
if Boston tears it down next year and they're within the top 10, that move or that first that they acquired this year moves to next year. And then the year after that, it's not protected. So if Boston is garbage again, Detroit might have another lottery pick after their rebuild's done.
And they're going to lose their top 2 centers. Like Bergeron and Krejci are both 37. Like they're on 1-year deals. Like it is not unrealistic that the wheels fall off next year.
But the other side of that coin is Pasta would not sign that big of a deal if they weren't telling him, hey, we got plans, which is the part that worries me the most.
He told that to Seth Jones, though.
Yeah.
You guys weren't, on a historic pace to break the regular season.
I don't know, man. You lose your key center depth. I think it's again, you got a hell of a haul for Bertuzzi.
Yeah, why don't you break that down too, Jordan? I mean, I know we got
it's more than we got for Kane.
Yeah.
So I'm going to break down all of the Wings moves really quick.
Okay.
Tyler Bertuzzi moves to the Boston Bruins, and in exchange, they got 2024 first round draft pick that's top 10 protected. If it's top 10 protected in 2024, it becomes a 2025 first round draft pick. They got a 4th round draft pick in 2025 as well. For Philip Hronek, they traded him to the Vancouver Canucks for a first round draft pick in this year's draft, which is the New York Islanders one. Again, top 10 protected. If it's a top 10 pick this year, it becomes a first round draft pick next year. And they also got a 2023 second round pick with him. They traded Jacob Verana with 50% of salary retained to St. Louis in exchange for a 7th round draft pick and Dylan McLaughlin, which if you've never heard of Dylan McLaughlin, it's a minor league trade. You probably have never heard of him for a reason.
You won't hear from him.
Realistically, Verana, St. Louis needs to hit a cap floor. Verana's doing that for him. And then Oscar Summers got traded to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a 2023 4th round draft pick. So basically, Detroit had a top 6 winger, a top 4 defenseman with term on him, and then a player in Oscar Sundqvist, who was really, I think, a surprise sort of pickup who the Wings kind of said, okay, if he becomes something great, if not, okay, it's a depth piece. Turned that into a 4th round draft pick. Steve Yzerman, like, he kind of said it, and I'm gonna, I guess, tie it to his post-trade deadline comments. He basically doubled down on the fact that, like, he thinks that this team is not ready to compete yet, and that even though they're not ready to compete, they can still acquire assets and turn these assets into players if they decide that's the route they want to go with. Kind of like what you mentioned, Dave, like if they decide they want to go shoot an offer sheet on someone, they can. I think even though it sucks seeing Bertuzzi leave, even though I think Hronek leaving is going to leave a really big hole in Detroit's D group, which we'll talk about that during the off season. And even like Oscar Sundqvist hurting when he leaves, I got to give props to Steve Yzerman. Like, he stuck to his guns about this team rebuilding, didn't try to force it this year at the deadline when I think he could have done it and people probably would have bought it anyway. I got to give props to Steve Yzerman. I thought he handled this trade deadline really well, all things considered, especially with Detroit's cap situation coming up, this offseason coming up. And I think this is kind of a signal to the fans that he's doubling down on the Sider, Raymond, Casper, Costa style group. Everybody who he drafted himself, I really think that's what this is a signal of more than anything. He's doubling down on his draft group.
I mean, besides Larkin,
Larkin and Rasmussen and Zadina, this is all Steve Yzerman's team at this point.
It's crazy to think about that. And speaking of Larkin, this trade deadline also had 2 contract extensions that we were very excited about with Dylan Larkin and the most surprising player for us, Jake Wallman, who after signing that extension had that just sick, nasty goal Thursday night.
I mean, all in all, I mean, very busy for you guys. Listen, I know the Hronek trade leaves a hole in the defense a little bit, but what a fucking haul.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? Like, it feels very much like Yzerman said, I think this is the high for Philip Hronek. Like, this is selling high. It sounds like they weren't even, that Vancouver was calling. They made, okay, let's have an offer. How many times when Kubalik had his like crazy season, Jordan, did we talk about like,
that's as high as he's ever going to be?
Like, this is it. This is the best he's going to be. We saw Hronek down last year. Like, he's been up and down. He clearly needs a partner to like stabilize and be responsible. Like, I have to think that Yzerman, I said this like last week or the week before, Yzerman seems like the kind of guy that like, he's going to make a move that he thinks is going to help the team, regardless of what the move is. And that's what this Hronek move feels like. Bertuzzi made sense. I get that. Totally like killer haul for it. We all had been guessing he'd be leaving, but the Hronek one, he was presented an opportunity and he said, yeah, this is going to improve the team, even if it doesn't improve, even if it hurts it in this moment. I dig it.
Yeah.
And Yzerman got the call, and that was the trade we were not expecting.
No,
I was not
expecting that.
Hronek to leave out of all the people. Like, I think when we did our like most likely, medium likely, Hronek never even came across.
I don't think he was mentioned in any of them.
I mean, we had our joke about, oh, it's gonna be Larkin. Like Larkin will get dealt and then come back. Like no one expected that. And like going back to what I was saying earlier with the Iser plan, it just made me think. It's like you're like Jordan, you were talking about Iserman and like how he handled this very well and everything. People need to be patient. I hate on Twitter Woodward Sports. I don't know if you follow them, Jordan, but they're just we should draft Anthony Richardson number 6 as the Lions. I'm like, no, like be quiet. But they're like, I don't know if I can be patient for another year. And I'm like, Iserman, when he took over Tampa, they made the Cup final, I think, or the Eastern Conference final his first season. And then they missed the playoffs like the next couple seasons. It didn't take him until towards the end of his tenure for them to make the Cup final, which he lost to the Capitals, the Eastern Conference finals to the Capitals. And then the second he signs with the Wings, they win back-to-back Cups. So like I don't think he ever won a Cup with Tampa.
No,
he built them, but he never won the Cup for them.
Yeah, he was gone. He
his
was gone
only
in the
cup-
back-to-back years.
His only Cup as a office person was the 08 Cup with the Red Wings. He won cups as a player with the Red Wings, and he won one Cup as a assistant GM or whatever he was with the Wings. He never won a Cup with Tampa. He built that team to win the Cup, but he never won the Cup.
No. I guess we're kind of going to talk about this a little bit during the off season, obviously, when like stuff starts happening. But this is actually a topic, and I think it's really important for everybody to like sort of chime in on. I mean, obviously, 5 first-round draft picks within the next 2 years. That's nothing to scoff at. Like you can really double down hard on a group with 5 guys all from the same 2 drafts.
Jordan, do you think we use all 5, or do you think, like you said, I think we package them for something?
And like Steve, again, like so they could either do that, or Steve Eisman again in his press conference says, "I'm not averse to turning draft picks into players."
Yeah.
Do you guys think, given this season and how that they were almost a playoff team this year, if Steve Eisman sort of looks at that and says, I have a couple of first-round draft picks, but I probably don't need 5 in order to get this team out of this rebuild that we're in. Do you guys think he packages some of them maybe for players from other teams and says, what, I think I have most of the group here.
Tell you what,
maybe
Vancouver,
I can go get a piece from somebody else.
Tell you what, Vancouver, we give you 3 of these picks. You give us Quinn Hughes and Elias Peterson.
I don't know. That's a tough question, because Yzerman liked his draft picks. He loves his scouting department, and based off his resume in Tampa, I think the only trade was didn't they get Sergachev, and it wasn't Sergachev.
It was the Drouin.
Drouin.
But that wasn't like a splashy trade at the time. Like it was splashy, Drouin going to Montreal, but like the return, I didn't know much about Sergachev at the time. I think Yzerman likes building his team his way, but this is also the most draft capitals he's had ever.
I was going to say, building on that, you're right. He does like to build a team his way. However, with the sheer amount of picks and the quality picks that he's got in the next 2 drafts, and knowing where your window is lining up to be, it's not like you're 3-4 years away. Like you're in the hunt. Like in the next 2 years, you could actually be truly competing. It would be wild to me if he didn't, keep 1 or 2 of those picks, but then flip them. Because again, picks are cool, but you're betting on potential at that point. If you can take those picks and flip them for a player that you know what you're getting and knows that it can help your team now, and I'm not talking rentals, I'm talking like cost control, people with term, like you can fill those holes with the pieces that you've got in the draft capital, improve the team, still build it your way, and not sacrifice your future because you still have some draft picks. I'm not a GM. I'm just a simple local podcaster, but like that sure feels right.
Yeah, I mean, just
small town podcaster.
I might just be a small town podcaster.
just a quick thought too. I mean, when we had Max Boltman on the couple times that we've had him, he's always talked about like they need that 1-2 punch, Larkin either being the 1 or the 2.
And I don't think it's Cop.
Yeah, I think you see
Bedard.
no, no,
Bite your tongue.
no.
I'll give you Fantilli if we get Bedard.
You
It's the
see-
only fair.
You see one of these picks, if they don't get a top 3 pick this year, I think you see one of these next 5 first round picks. I think you go get that number 1 center, have Dylan Larkin be your number 2, or go get a really goddamn good number 2 center.
Yeah.
It's an interesting spot for Detroit again after this trade deadline. They had a lot of departures, but could also be acquisitions in this offseason. I do want to talk about, and I think this is actually probably the most important piece of Red Wings news this week to talk about. Dylan Larkin, you mentioned it earlier, signed an 8-year, $8.7 million per year contract. This is, aside from Tyler Bertuzzi, like this has been the other major storyline this season for the Wings.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most important one.
Oh yeah.
Detroit's got one of those top 6 centers lined up, and they've got it for 8 years now. So it's
And it's
Dylan
under what you and I
Larkin's it.
predicted.
We said it would be right around $8.5 to $9 million probably.
We said
And-
9 to 9.5. I thought
Did
we
say
said
that?
we said we'd like. I remember we said we'd like 8.5, but it sounds like he wants higher.
I thought you guys just didn't want it north of 10.
North of
Yeah.
10 would have been where I'd have been like a Stevie no. But
I just
8.7
like-
million a year for Dylan Larkin,
Sweet
a
spot.
guy who legitimately is a top 6 center on any NHL club for 8 years, when you have basically no guaranteed center depth behind him right now.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this move. And like
Oh,
Dylan
God,
Larkin
so
in his
happy.
press conference even says, I have full intentions of earning this money every time, like every year that I play. Like, I'm not going to get comfortable now that I've got a payday. He's like,
Yeah.
that's not how I was raised. That's not what my parents told me to do growing up. He's like, I was always told, earn your paycheck. He's like, and I want to earn this paycheck.
Now I really want that reverse retro Larkin jersey. Oh, so nice. But yeah, like a great deal. Not what we expected. I think we said 9 would be probably the minimum he was going to get. But I just love that it looks like he had just woken up and Yzerman was at his house.
I was gonna go there.
Yzerman's just knocking on the door. He's like, hey, if you don't sign this, McCarty's going to beat you up. What? Yeah. Sign
Yeah.
it.
I mean, you got to look at the salary on it too in this higher cap world. I mean, compared to kind of trying to tie it into like how we would understand it with when Kane and Taves got their big payday. I mean, 10.5 million back then was a large amount. 8.7 now. I think the cap went up like 9 million over that time. It's really looking like a $6.5, $7 million deal.
I mean, realistically, 8.7 is what, like, for a first line center, that's a Bo Horvat signed for what, 8.5?
Yeah.
And that was someone who had no attachment or connection to the New York Islanders. Like, obviously he's not, well, again, look at Tavares, like what he signed. We're seeing it all over the league when it comes to number 1 centers. Not like between 8 and 10 million for not McDavid, like that makes sense at this point.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great, reasonable deal that's both true to Larkin getting what he deserves and also being team friendly, which is a wild situation.
It's got to be relieving having your captains locked up the next 8 years. You don't have to worry about it.
Nice.
You don't have to worry about him.
I mean, like the thing that I think is also kind of interesting about him inking for 8 years at 8.7, obviously the contract is front loaded. A lot of these are just, it protects the player in the event of like an injury or something like that. That way that player's still set up, for whatever happens after hockey for them, which obviously you would expect that to be the case with a lot of these 8-year deals. But even so, like this contract, in my opinion, sort of sets the bar for the Wings. Like, I don't think there's a player on the Wings who, when they come up for the contract negotiations again, like Moritz Seider, for example, when he comes off his entry level contract, is Moritz Seider a great defenseman? Yes. Is he going to be able to justify that he's worth more than $8.7 million a year? I think that's a hard sell for him to management, that yes, I'm worth more than your top line center.
Mm-hmm.
I like that this contract sort of sets like the bar for the contracts on the team. Like nobody's going to be able to say I'm worth more than 8.7 million a year. Like even Seider, I think at the max would probably fetch 8 million.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're going to see when these players sign contracts, they're going to be very team friendly, because you've heard all the guys talking, like Wallman said, like, before he signed anything, we're building something really special here. And you're hearing
Yeah.
that from guys. And like we're seeing it with other Detroit teams, like the Detroit Lions. You're hearing the same things where players are taking pay cuts because they are seeing something special. Like, I have a former student who's a sports personality journalist. Like he does stuff for one of the Michigan radio stations. But his big Twitter post last year was the 2020s are the decade of Detroit. And I was like, yeah, sure. We're still rebuilding. But two of those four like big teams, I can actually see it right now with the Lions and the Wings. The Pistons, I think it'll be a couple more years. The Tigers, I have no idea.
Let's not even try to. Yeah.
But like coming out of this rebuild at the end of the 2020s, I can see the Wings being that team, especially with Larkin's very friendly deal.
I mean, Tim, Nick, you guys are kind of looking at this from the outside world. Like, how do you guys feel about this contract? Like, what does this signal to you guys looking from the outside?
I love it. I mean, it like, again, I think I already talked a little bit about it in terms of like around the league comparisons. Like Nick Schmaltz locked up at 7.5 mil a couple years ago. Like I think Nathan McKinnon's at 9.5, or he might be more actually now. I think it's incredibly reasonable. You've got your captain locked up. You've got your number one or your number two if you get some sort of stroke of luck and get another center. I think it shows a sign that he wants to be here. He's locked up for the 8 years. It's a sign that management is going to work with players in these negotiations, even if it's not going to get everything that the player is looking for. I think it puts your team in a great position. I think it puts Yzerman in a great position. I've got nothing bad to say about this signing.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, like I kind of said, if your captain locked up, you're a happy team. Especially when your captain's your number one center and your franchise piece for now. I mean, obviously you got Sider and Raymond and all this, all these entertaining names, kind of exciting, but he's locked up. And like you said, you kind of look at that contract and like no player is going to cut. If they do have an arrogant ego, and you think you deserve more than our captain who took a pay cut to be here, then see ya. But no, I mean, you got to be thrilled. You got to love the direction. All in all, what a deadline day for the Wings. They were active.
Mm-hmm.
And they were close to another 2 moves, I think I was hearing. It kind of
they were
shows
in on JVR, it felt like, for a
I think
moment, but who knows how
big
true that was.
Apparently the big rumor with the JVR deal was he was just going to flip him.
Oh,
okay, I see that.
I could see that, or they were trying to get or they were trying to make a move to acquire JV. I don't know, but
there was a joke. There was a joke where like, who's Philly's GM dummy?
Chuck is it Chuck Fletcher now?
Oh yeah, I think it's still
he was
Fletcher.
interviewed and he was like, we had a deal with the Wings and Yzerman and they pulled it. And I'm like, I bet he just called Yzerman, was like, hey, we can trade you Janser and Riemsdyk. And Yzerman was like, yeah, sure. He's like, oh, he's gonna trade him to us.
No, I think the Wings had a winning deadline.
Yeah,
I would say deadline week, I guess I would call it, because deadline day was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, a little slow.
But
again, we had the most exciting trade deadline week in years.
Yeah, it was a hell of a lead up. Wings, I think you could view as winners, because I mean you got one of the best GMs in the league, and then you got future assets, and who knows what happens with that. And your Dylan Larkin's extended for 8 more years.
I also want
Jake Wallman too.
I just want to step in really quickly. So Nathan McKinnon is on the last year of a 6.3 mil cap hit. His deal kicks in next year. He's at 12.6 million. So yeah. I wanted to make sure that I gave accurate information. I try not to talk out of my ass half the time.
No,
so I wanted
McKinnon was on a friendly deal before.
Yeah.
So.
And he deserves 12.6 million. All this to say, you've got Larkin at 8.7. Fantastic.
Yeah, through his prime.
Fantastic.
Normally this is the part of the segment where we do the flashback and flash forward segment.
We don't have to.
There's only one thing to say for the Wings flashback. It was awful this week. They
Terrible. Awful.
I try not to relive the past for what happened in the last Hawks week. So
I was gonna say, like, the last Hawks week wasn't good. The next Hawks future isn't good. Yeah. So let's talk about the Wings.
we might skip this segment for a little bit on our side.
We might have to too.
Yeah, what happened to you guys?
We just lost to Philly.
Ottawa came out with a wrecking ball and just smashed.
Yeah, that was rough. Those were 2 rough games.
God, they were terrible. But you guys are beating them right now, 1-0.
Kurashev had a beautiful move. If he can do that consistently, Nick, he's definitely part of the future. Like, I think he's on the other side of the rebuild if he can just be consistent with some of that move.
Just looking at this week moving forward, it's going to be a rivalry week this week, fellas. The Wings are playing the Blackhawks on Wednesday up in Detroit.
The Blackhawks are the Indy Fuel, or the
We need
Rocket
the
White
Hawks to
Sox.
win so we can get the nerd.
So that'll be a fun one to watch. And then the Wings are going to play the Boston Bruins twice this week, once at home, once in once in Boston. I would love to like actually watch the Bruins get stomped by the Wings, but I gotta be honest, I don't see it, fellas. Boston's just too stupid good right now.
They're
Too stupid good. Too stupid good.
You play them twice this week?
We play them twice this week, and like it's back-to-back days. So like they're gonna get smacked one day, and then they're gonna get smacked.
And the problem
next
is, like,
one.
you can't even like, oh well, they'll have their backup goalie, and because Swayman's killer too.
Yeah, just enjoy
Both their goalies are good.
enjoy your win against us this week, and then just
Yeah, cherish it.
So we're
up.
currently at 65 points. We need St. Louis, Philly to start winning a few games, get us, down the ladder a bit.
I mean, Tim, Nick, do you guys want to talk about the week that's coming up for you guys?
I mean, sure. I mean, we're playing Ottawa right now. As you said, we play you guys on Wednesday. We play the Panthers on Friday. We play the Lightning on Saturday. I mean, Nick, I don't think we win 7 games the rest of the year.
yeah, I said that to my one of my friends over text because we did like a prediction thing, Hawks record at the end of the year. I'm like, I don't see them winning 5 games the rest of the season. So
I mean,
we're gonna lose tonight. We're gonna lose against Detroit. We're gonna lose against Florida. We're gonna lose against Tampa.
You know what? I think we beat the Senators tonight.
Tim, we said that we were gonna beat the Ducks last week and we lost.
I don't give a shit. I have to say one. We
and
are
we
going to
both
beat
were
the
in
Senators.
agreement. We said we're gonna beat the Ducks tonight,
Yeah.
and then it was all downhill after we hung.
I think we were up 2 at that point. In my defense, it's the kind of bet that I like to make. I was like, oh, we're already up 2-0. Like, this is great. We lost 4-2. Yeah, I think we're gonna beat the Senators because we have a weird, like, this team hustles. Like, look, we're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of laughs here.
Are we?
Well,
Behind the tears.
Yeah, exactly. This team does hustle. And like, I think that we can grind out against the Senators. I don't see us beating the Red Wings, Panthers and Lightning. Again, it's the NHL. Any team can win any night. So like, it is what it is. Even Arizona State has the shambles of a team. I just don't think we win any other games after the Senators this week. Oh, cool. Tuesday, we've got Boston. We'll talk about that when we get there. But that I'm just seeing that, just winking at me.
Will we?
Yeah, we'll see something.
So that's everything that I have on the docket. We kind of talked about it a little bit before the show, but we've been starting to do like this segment where we talk and have like a fun question to end the show out. So, we talked about, what your favorite memory of Patrick Kane was in Chicago, to like just sort of relive after you saw something really special. David, you had a really interesting, like if you could relive a moment from like either TV or like a movie or something that you saw for the first time, and like it either wowed you or threw you for a complete loop, what would it be? David, it was your question. What one would you pick?
Yeah, so I was thinking about it because I was watching movie clips the other day before bed. I'm like, I just want to watch the movie because I'd be like, man, this was great. And it was hard narrowing it down to one. So I had 2, and I told you guys the one before the show, Avengers Endgame. Spoilers for people that haven't watched it, but if you haven't watched it, it's been a few years now. Stop slacking and watch it. where all hope looks to be lost. Cap is standing up, strapping his broken shield to his arm. Here comes all the bad guys, and then you hear like on your left, and then like all the circles open, and all the Avengers,
Man,
and
that's so
everybody
good.
shows up, and the Wakandans are chanting, and the building. It's like, and then Avengers assemble and chart. That was hype. One of the most hype moments. Had my wife watch it when we watched the movie. She didn't care. I was like, wow, you're terrible. The other one was, as a kid, it blew my freaking mind, was watching Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. The
Yeah.
confrontation between Luke and Vader, and then Vader's all like, oh, Obi-Wan didn't tell you about your father. He's like, yeah, you killed him. No, I'm your father. I'm like, oh, what?
Wait, David, what?
Sorry, my bad.
What? I haven't
It-
seen that one.
I mean, his
That's
his
it.
literal name in German means father. Vader means
I
father.
don't speak German.
I didn't either.
I'm
Seven.
shook.
But those are my top two. Like, I'm just like, man, to live that again.
That's rad.
Nick, what's yours? You got a moment from either TV or like a film that you would like to just completely
Oh.
relive and get it again?
Oh man. I'm gonna go with The Departed. I think
Okay.
The Departed, the end scene there was kind of. Oh,
The elevator?
I think I'm. Yeah.
God, yeah.
Sorry.
That's a
Am
good,
I,
I'd watch
is
that
my
movie again.
is my mic slow? Am I behind or am I?
No, you're
just-
coming
No,
in.
you're loud and clear. Oh, maybe not.
All right. Yeah. So The Departed. I mean, it's my go-to. I like
love
the
that
mafia
movie.
movies. Kind of just in the elevator. You get the betrayal. You get the gun. You get the shots. You get the murders, and it's just kind of like, wait, what the fuck did I just watch?
That came out freshman year of college for me. And we were just sitting there and they were watching, like, and when that happened, we're like, what? 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 Like, every time something happened, we're like, what the heck? So, yeah. Tim?
I think for me, again, movie, definitely The Goodfellas. I think that's just like there were so many iconic scenes in that movie that seeing it I was way too young when I saw it the first time.
5 years old.
Yeah, then proceeded to eating a little thing of spaghetti and a little gabagolas. I'm just like, oh, this is great. But no, it's such a brilliant oh man, to be able to relive some of those scenes over for the first time again and have that feeling, I would give it. A TV show, if I had to reset my memory and get to watch something fresh, it might be The West Wing. I love that series and being able to go through and explore those characters. I remember there's a couple of episodes especially that you're just seeing it for the first time. It is so emotionally powerful that Goodfellas and West Wing. So there I am.
Okay. For me, if it's going to be a film, it would probably have to be the scene from Fight Club where the narrator's sitting there and he finally finds out from Brad Pitt's character that, hey, you've been imagining something, I'm not real. I'm all in your head.
That's good.
You made this yourself.
Dude, good pick. I forgot.
That was good.
I remember watching that the first time and it threw me for such a loop when they started playing all the scenes with him talking to himself. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That one was a good one. In terms of a TV moment, probably the first time in the Lost series, if you guys remember that.
Oh,
I never watched
yeah.
Lost.
A
think-
cultural phenomenon.
I think it was the end of either the third or the second season. So the series normally had flashbacks, and at the end of that season, they had done this. It had ran a flashback, and then at the very end of it, they showed the characters off the island. So it wasn't a flashback or a flash forward. It was kind of a flash sideways, which for me, it was interesting because it told what was going to happen before it actually happened.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I dig that. Yeah, that was Jordan, that was such an exciting show to watch every week as it rolled out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I kind of miss that feeling.
If I had to do a TV show, because I'm you guys all did TV shows too.
Yeah, I did one of each. I panicked.
I would say ending of season 2 of Mandalorian. That was so hype.
Yeah, all right. That was killer.
That was hype. I don't want to say anything more because I don't know if everyone's watched that.
It's
I
still
can't
somewhat
believe
fresh
Plo
enough
Koon
where
came
people can
back.
say it
Yeah.
hasn't been enough
Season
time
3
to-
just started. I'm excited about it. I'm loving it. And it's funny seeing people on Twitter being like, wait, what's going on? I don't understand. I'm like, you didn't watch the random show called Book of Boba Fett.
What a
Okay.
casual.
Idiot.
I don't know. Building on that again, we're wrapping up this show. Real quick hit, Nick. You had I don't know. I don't think that it's inappropriate to have a second question on this, especially as we wrapped up the trade deadline. Nick, you had a really difficult question, one that I've been grappling with this entire show. You want to hit us with that and see what we get?
Yeah, it was a simple question. Just boys, I know we do this almost every year. What was your favorite trade deadline acquisition? Like, it doesn't have to be your own team. What was your favorite move in the NHL that like it made sense for the team acquiring that player? It made sense for the assets going back, or just like, holy hell, that's a hell of a move for this.
Oh, do you mean this year?
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought you meant what is your favorite trade that
No,
was
I
it?
think-
And I have
I think
been racked with that for the entire episode.
No,
This
no.
year, oh man.
I think every year, instead of like covering all the trades, because there's just so much
it's
that
so
goes
hard.
down, we kind of talk about our favorite one. So I was just wondering what your guys' ones this year.
I mean, I kind of
Future
went last on the moves.
considerations.
I'll start with this one. I think it's Dmitry Orlov to Boston Bruins, and I think the reason why it's my favorite is because it's kind of Caps management signaling to fans here that, hey, the dream is kind of over. Like it's gonna be pain time here in a minute, and I think that's a feeling that Caps fans have kind of forgot that, like, you're not gonna be on cloud nine forever. Eventually, stuff's gonna come crashing down, and I think that's kind of like the first time that you really saw management say, okay, it's coming. I don't know. For me, at least, I thought that was really exciting to see their management group make that decision.
But
dig
you gotta think, I live in this area for how many years now? Caps fans have been on cloud nine since before they even won a cup. They thought they were the best team since sliced bread, even though they never got near the cup. So, they'll never not have that feeling.
I'll quickly piggyback on Jordan, not to like intervene since it was my question, but it's based off that. Red Wings fans, cover your ears. My favorite move was the the Bruins acquiring Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah.
He is just such a Boston type player. Like, you never see Boston go get these untouchable superstars that are known for their deeks and dangles. They go get you a Tyler Bertuzzi, a Nick Foligno, a guy that's going to go balls to the wall and lay it all on the line to go out there and win a game. I think that is such a Boston move that it makes the most sense. And they're going to be a pain in the ass to play against in the playoffs, like they have been all year anyways.
I gotta agree with you. I think if I'm looking at all the trades, that's a great trade for them because he is a guy that will put everything out there to get that goal or to set someone else up for a goal. And I find it really funny that one of the players we've acquired, Chiasson, whatever his name is,
Alex Chason
was the player that had one of the funniest freaking chirps against from Bertuzzi. And well, Fabry was part of it. It was really Bertuzzi because I guess one of the games, his name was wrong on the back of his jersey.
That's so funny.
And so he was trying to jaw with Bert between the two benches, and Bert was just jawing him, going like, "Your team doesn't care about you. You don't even have your name spelled right." Like, it was bad. And Fabry's just like dying next to him laughing, and I'm just like, I'm gonna miss that. We need someone that can chirp.
Man, this sucks. I was gonna go with Bertuzzi. Man, that sucks that we all went with a Boston trade. I don't know. Like, I tried to justify like Domi to Dallas or like the Timo Meyer trade. That is, but I don't know. I feel like I don't feel as much about the Timo Meyer trade. Like, Jersey's already in like a really good, like they've added him cool. Like, the Rangers got Tarasenko and then they were able to get Kane for pennies. And so, like, awesome. I hope that all works out. But if I'm talking one trade for a team that it just fits so naturally, man, that sucks. Like, Bertuzzi, the cost was right. That everything about where he slots in. I watched it again. He was playing against the Rangers on Saturday, and he was killer. Like, he had an impact all over the ice. Like, he immediately fit in with the Bruins. Yeah, the Bruins are the best in the East, and I will be shocked if they do not win a cup. And Bertuzzi immediately if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be the best acquisition in a series of acquisitions that have all the star power in the world. Tyler Bertuzzi could be that impact maker.
Yeah. You know, changing topic, little palate cleanser thing, because we all had the same. 3 of us had the same choice.
That sucks.
Just to up. So one of my other questions before the show was like go-to pizza toppings, but I changed it because it made me think undervalued or underrated or unknown pizza topping combination. Because the one I like to go to, that when I ordered like my local restaurant, they were like, "Wait, what? You could do that?"
That's a crime.
Now, be warned, one of these toppings is a highly controversial pizza topping where you're either for it or you're against it.
It's pineapple.
It is. I call it the 3 S's, the salty, spicy, sweet combo. Pineapple, jalapeno, and bacon. Real bacon. It's so good.
Sounds great.
It's so good.
You're telling me I don't have to have a
Pineapple doesn't belong
vegetable
on
with my
pizza.
pizza? This is great.
Jalapenos are a vegetable?
Yeah, jalapenos are a vegetable.
There
You
you
got
go.
your fruit with your pineapple.
You're
Not-
meeting the little food pyramid that was a lie that was taught to us as
Oh,
children.
yeah. Listen, if you want to make a pie, you got yourself your deep dish and you go jardinera, a little sausage, and then some spinach. You throw those together, you get yourself a deep dish, you bake that pie. I'm telling you, my friend, you've got yourself a meal and a half.
I need a place out here that makes Detroit style because it's like not too
Now,
bready.
We had
It's
a
not
nice
too bready.
thing.
I love me a good Chicago deep dish, but
But you're not looking for that for every listen,
yeah,
I get it.
Whereas the Detroit style, you get that like breadiness of it, but it's not too much.
No, tavern cut all the way.
Oh, tavern, yeah. Tavern is what a Chicagoan eats on like a regular night where they're like, I'll get a pizza. Like, yeah.
All right. Anyone else have a unknown combination that you're like, man, this is good stuff?
Occasionally instead of red sauce, you go barbecue and have Italian beef on top.
Ooh, wait, what?
Now you're gonna go
That
Italian beef
sounds-
with barbecue.
Ooh,
It's delicious. It's delicious.
Ooh.
It's a
Ooh.
barbecue Italian beef pizza. It's very popular. in my area.
We don't have Italian beef out here, but if I ever come back to Chicago, I'm gonna order that.
If you sprinkle a little jar down that, Nick, you've got
Oh yeah.
yourself a treat.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can definitely dice up some jardin around there.
All right, Jordan or Timmy, any unknown combos?
I gave you mine.
It's not a
True.
combo necessarily, but it's something that I don't see enough, in my opinion. Garlic, like just chunks of garlic on your pizza. Like I
Garlic.
never see it in restaurants. I'm like, why does nobody eat this? It's delicious.
No cheese, just sauce and garlic.
I want to kill Dracula the next time I see that son of a bitch.
I want to take a breath and Dracula dies.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna die, clown.
Listen, I'd eat it. I'm not even gonna lie. I'd eat it in a heartbeat.
Oh, just some roasted garlic on. Oh man.
But
I'm
like, when was the
salivating.
last time you saw that in like a pizza place? Somebody ordering just garlic
Just a garlic,
on a
never,
pizza.
because we're not like sociopaths, Jordan. Like, it's not a normal thing that people eat, even though I will eat garlic just raw, pop them all day. That is not what a normal human being would put on a pizza.
Before I met my wife, I thought it would be a great combination to like whenever I made my sandwiches for work, like the mustard, the turkey, the
Oh,
cheese,
yeah, easy.
and put just that, like, you know how you can buy like the jug of just minced garlic
Mhm.
in like the
Yeah.
water. I would just spread that on the sandwich, and I'm like, this is delicious. And then I'm like, no one would ever kiss me with this breath.
Thank God you probably didn't have to have any face-to-face conversations.
But I
Holy
did.
shit.
You're an animal.
During COVID, you were able to get away with that because you had a mask covering your face. But now,
You could not, because you did it to yourself. You're like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yeah, y'all are animals. All right, let's
Yeah,
wrap this
I'm
up.
getting hungry.
Jordan's got just bread and garlic, like just sitting here. Listen, I'll try. I'm gonna make one of those, and I will report back to you. Like,
We'll
hey, this
call
was
it
a
Jordan.
delicious choice, or
You
this was a
guys-
terrible mistake.
You gotta try the 3 S's. It's so good.
I'm
the
gonna
salty,
try all
spicy,
these
sweet.
pizzas.
I can't get the Italian beef one.
We'll
I
send you
don't know
some.
many. I don't know of any Chicago style pizzerias near me.
You wouldn't find it's one of these bar pizzas, but it's delicious.
That sounds like a Joliet bar pizza, to be entirely honest. And I don't
Hey.
mean that any disrespect.
it
I
is.
love it.
It is. It's delicious. Jordan,
All right,
we're all
guys.
getting hungry.
Take us
We're all
home,
getting
brother. I gotta
hungry.
go eat.
All right. Well, if anybody's still tuning in and watching or listening to the show, we really appreciate you guys checking us out. At the end of the day, this podcast is by fans for fans, not only fans. Got to stay away from the bands on YouTube and on Facebook. But in all seriousness, thank you for checking us out and giving us like a bit of your time. We really appreciate it. And feel free to give us a like, follow, share, whatever it is on the social media platform you found us. We're all over the place. We're on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're all over the social medias here. So check us out. In the meantime, we'll catch you guys back all here next time on the Sick Blade Podcast. You all take care, stay safe, have a good week, and we hope to talk to you guys next week. See you guys soon.